Hey, it's Don, the auction professor here. We're going to talk about some information on how to identify certain specific items. We're going to go into some markings on sterling and jewelry in general. We're going to give you some information on what not to buy and what to buy and some outer marks that you don't see. I'm going to touch a little bit on the basics, on markings on the jewelry that you will find, and then we're going to delve into, and I'm just going to be showing you some actual images and some other information on it as well, too. So we're going to go over the screen, and we're literally just going to be talking today about identifying. This is how you make the money, is by identifying properly. So anyway, we're going to go over to the screen right now. Okay, so today I'm just going to talk about markings on silver, and this has been asked of me, geez, I don't know how many dozens of times, and this is probably the biggest question on metal type of items, including jewelry, that I get more than ever. This is literally it, and it's been questions in every group I have, the same question. I'm just going to shoot this out here. This is the site that anybody can use. It's free to use. It's on the net. This is the bomb. This is what I use. I have the book, mind you, with all basically the similar markings, but this is up to date. It's got a ton of information on it. The site is called 925-1000.com. That's all you need to know. This is a favorite place of mine. It's on every PC, laptop I have in the house. I use this all the time. This is the biggest online, I can't say it's an insider information because there's other people who know about it, but this is the one I use all the time. I always use this one. Every mark that I've needed to find, I've been able to find in here. Little ones, small ones, foreign, there's world marks, American marks, British marks. There's some other information that's not included on here, but for the most part, this site does it all, literally. I'll show you some here, just to give you a good example. This is American marks. This is just the American silver markings. And on sterling, this has to be silver. You can sort them by the name. So let's say you have somebody with Albert or something in the name. It's got it all right here. It's by last name, of course. Obviously, there's some advertising helps pay for this. But literally, just go down here. It even has the date that the person actually did it, if it's known anyway. In the majority of them at least have a ballpark range. This is I would say the encyclopedia of silver marks for free for you. Don't buy the book. I probably wouldn't have bought the book had this been around. I've had the book for like 30 years, so you know, it was in my grandparents' estate when they passed away. So anyway, I've kept it all this time. It had their name in it and all, so not necessarily just for the silver. It's historical. She's got some information that she wrote in my grandmother. So anyway, long story short, this site is the bomb. This site surpasses that book, and it also goes into more depth and offers more information. I have a book, and I wished I had a copy of it sitting right next to me, but it's American and British sterling marks. It's got the makers' names and such forth. It's categorized similarly, but you sort it differently. It's like different styles. One has like a plant section if the marking looks like a plant or a leaf or something like that. This is very good, though. This is literally one of my favorites. I look at this all the time. Pictorial marks are like key ones that I usually look for. This is usually what most people find and have no clue what it is. So you literally, on the pictorial marks, you can search this way. The book, you can sort it by like animal types to some extent too, but this is usually pretty good. This doesn't have everything, of course, and neither did the book, but this one is probably my favorite, as I said. You can come up here and look by birds and fish, literally sorted on through there that way, and it's all the different categories are up here. But again, this is how you sort it down. You find one that looks like what you're looking for. It's just a matter of clicking it. I don't pay attention to the name of the company until I'm sure that the mark's the same. This goes with sterling of any kind, jewelry, you know, flatware, silverware, whatever type you want, plates, mugs, dishes, creamers, sugars, trays, coffee pots, whatever it is. The same marking would be found on any numerous amounts of material from that same company. A lot of companies didn't just do silverware. Obviously, you expand your business when you're reselling. They expanded their business to and sold stuff like baby rattles, napkin rings, nameplates, bottle hangers, like the gin labels you see that hang off like a bar set, or, you know, one of the locked bar caddies that they used to have in the 1800s and stuff. So These markings can show up all the place, all over the place for all kinds of different items. And sometimes you'll see on here they have some really good detailed information like manufacturer of thimbles, jewelry, and novelties. So again, you could see plates, cups, silverware, jewelry by this company. They started in 1875. It goes way back. Colonial time is on here. Literally, it's the all-inclusive, generalized catalog of information for sterling in general. Again, most everything you're going to find is going to be on here. I have not been stumped on a U.S. maker yet, not being able to find it in here. I found every single one. A lot of people don't know about this site again, but it's key for me, for my business. I could go through the book and do all that other kind of stuff, but it's a waste of my time. This is it. It's easy, quick reference, and then if you're wrong, you don't have to search through the book again. Like in the Bookwise, you'd have to flip through 50 pages maybe to find something similar, because it might not necessarily have been in like a pictorial mark section as opposed to the actual name of the company that made it. And why that may be is because if it's old, a lot of the markings can be worn off and you may only see part of it, like the pictorial part. So it's not always shown that way in the book. So this is the bomb. This is it for what we do. You shouldn't really need much other source for silverware and jewelry, at least for the silver marks on it. At least silver jewelry in general. Now, gold jewelry is a different story. There's sites for gold jewelry. There is some gold jewelry in here as well, too. And you can see one right here, 18K. So, anyway, another thing, side note just for a minute here, silver alloys are also key to, knowing your stuff here. Now, this isn't everyone. There are other silver content, like 640 is actually one. It's in some coins from like Portugal and things like that. 800 is standard European sterling, which is, 0.800 instead of 0.925. Ours is 0.925. All that means is there's 925 parts out of 1,000 that are solid silver, and the other 0.75 is some other substance. Usually copper is what they use. When you see, solid silver bars that are 0.999, there's always a minute trace, a 0.001 trace of other metals, whatever it may be. It not necessarily has to be copper. The key here is it has to be 0.925 or 92.5% solid silver. Britannia is another one. Now there's another one it's not really Britannia, and I can't remember what the other wording is, but there's another one that's like just a white metal, like a cheap leadish pewter alloy that's similar called. It sounds like Britannia, but anyway, you don't have to know all this stuff in all, but you should know what the quality marks are. So 95.84% is Britannia, and you'll see like silver over it and things like that because silver wore harder, like a sterling coat. So you might find Britannia that's been silver plated, because it's stronger, because it's got another metal mixed into it, from what I understand. Again, I don't know all the total aspects. I've been explained this, and I've looked this up, and that's basically the gist of it. I could be wrong on a little of the terminology, but that's the gist. 830 is another one. There's a lot of them. Just know the keys. Know that if it says something other than 925, it doesn't mean it's not sterling. This one's missing 950. 950 is a Mexican mark. You can go over the border, you used to, real easily, and you could get nice sterling 950, which is better than 925 sterling. It's got more quality or more quantity of solid silver in it. So anyway, that's the gist on that, just so we can go over that. So you're going to see other markings on it. 800 is probably the most common one after 925. 950 is down farther, because I usually see 830 prior to seeing the 950. I don't know why. It's just, I guess, less of the Mexican silver that's that strong. 830 is pretty common. It's European. I've shown some actually in my videos. I've shown a nice dish that weighed like 8 or 10 ounces that was solid 830. It's Dutch. It was from the Netherlands. So, and the reason I got it for just a few bucks is because literally no one realized that, or they missed the mark. It was really small. A lot of the European markings I've noticed on bigger objects are tiny, or they're in an inconspicuous place, so it's not very noticeable. So I look at everything very closely, even when I go to an antique mall where it says something on it, just to make sure. Once before, I found 2 pounds worth of sterling at a antique mall for like $30. So, you know, the stuff shows up. Even at thrift stores, you can find it. And it might be marked differently than 925. So anyway, let's just go on just a little bit here. But again, back to this site here. Initial marks you can find on here, or just literally by the name, because the markings are in various ways. The various ways would be like the initial marks you see, not a company name. So it's not going to give you a big clue as to the company without finding some sources. And as I said, this is the bomb. I'm going to repeat it again, 925-1000.com. It's just on the net. It's been there for, like a decade or something, for what I remember. There's some other sites. This one here, I think, if I remember right, has a couple links to it. You can check the current price of sterling as well, too. It takes you to an outside source, but I've never had a safety concern or issue with the site ever in my life. So anyway, this one's very good. This is it. I mean, you can just see the quality, the quantity of marks. You should be able to find your heart's dreams of markings in here. It's just an incredibly good site. There's some that, obviously, this is the unknown page. You see it's not very big of an unknown page. They were very extensive in the research and using much of the information from what I see from actually the backmark book, the hallmark book. Now we're going to look at British ones here. These are touch marks for the most part. This is a touch mark. It's an indented mark. They were usually hammered in individually. This would have been one mark, a separate mark, and a separate mark. You wouldn't be seeing them all at once. And then up here is the actual company name. This is, well, we're going to just go into it. This is silver standard markings. I don't always remember this off the top of my head. I know if I see these markings, I always take a better look at it. And then I'll look into it and get dates and eras and things like that. But this gives you the grade. These are markings, the style of metal, like Britannia is the B. And this is on coins, too. Not for being Britannia metal, but for just their symbolization of England in general and some of the early coins. So just keep that in mind on this. But these are the marks you are going to find on the pieces of sterling. Some of them, it gives you the exact area. They're from, like, Glasgow. Lion here is sterling. The leopard head is what this one is, and this one's the one I always remember. And it's the London mark here on these two right here. So again, they all mean something, all these marks. And with these marks on British sterling, not just sterling like silverware, whatever it is, jewelry. I have some jewelry pieces that were made in Edinburgh, in Dublin as well. My wife loves jewelry. So, some of these things can be found, on other pieces besides jewelry and stuff too. We've sold a ton of this stuff, The higher end ones, we're not big fans of big gaudy jewelry, so those usually get sold anyway. But anyway, and then here we go, as I said, city marks, and this pretty much breaks it down to where the piece was made. So you've got the quality mark right there, and then we've got the city marks. That's what these are. So this, you can narrow it down, at least with British, as we're talking about. You can narrow it down to where it's from. You then, after that, you can actually do like duty marks, which were like a fee paid. And these are literally the king or queen's image on here. And that's how you can date these even better. So it pretty much narrows it down so exclusively on this. There's some French ones that have duty marks and things like that too. There's a worldwide section on here also. Maker's marks, of course. These are import marks. The best one and the most key here are date letters. That's another important one here. And it goes into like dating of these items. So, that's the key on these. My favorite part is tracking these down and, trying to be able to tell when something was made and such forth. So this site here is really great at doing that. Duty marks or whatever you're doing on it here. This site is great. So anyway. Let's see here. They've got import marks here too, so you can kind of dig through and look around on the marks themselves. There's explanations on this. There's date letters in here too, and then like here you go with date letters and things too. London City, 1780. Here's a date chart letter as well too. This is what you want right here. This has every date from 1696 through 1935. So if you need to know when something was made and it's got a letter on it, this is what you do. This is always here. You just have to track around and get it on here. Go to the British maker marks and track it down from there. But it's here. It's really easy. This site's really easy to navigate. Now there's pseudo marks. You're going to see American marks which I would call pseudo marks, meaning that they're made to look like they're British marks with letters and numbers, and they'll even have the duty head like King George or something on it. But they're just Americans making it look British to be more acceptable, I would say, at the time. So anyway, this site literally covers all of that. And when you're looking at this too, sometimes the symbols are going to be worn, so you're not going to be able to see the entire thing. So some of it's going to be conjecture, and some of it's you're going to have to look at all of the availability. You can't just look at one mark and say you can date it. So, if there's an O or whatever the mark is, look at the other ones to make sure they correspond. There are some fakes out there too as well too. So anyway, sometimes wear can affect what you're actually seeing. One other thing too, talking about wear, I heard this question asked. I've seen it a lot. You'll see numbers sometimes on the tines of a fork or on the back, like that say 90. That's one of the most common ones. I've seen 45 and other things like that. That has nothing to do with silver if it's something like this. That's like a silver plate or a weighting mark or something along that line. And I've seen them on many, many pieces of spoons and things like that, and silverware and things. I've had enough of them looked at, by a jeweler that we sell our scrap to. So it's all like that. Whatever you find, you're going to see it. Here's another one. Sometimes it has a maker mark. Sometimes it just says 90. Sometimes it just says 45. None of those marks mean much. Now, don't get that confused with a real worn one where you only can see a 9 and a 0, because that might actually be 900 and the 0 is worn off at the end. So just play it by ear. Most jewelers, if you sell them a lot of scrap and stuff like that, will be happy to identify it, because if it's good, they're going to want to buy it, at scrap value, because they'll make a profit off of it too. Or they're hoarders and they'll save it and then sell it when the silver goes up. A lot of people do that. Nothing wrong with it at all. So, we sold some not too long ago just because the price has been stagnant for so long, and I get it in quite often. So anyway, but again, that 90, it means nothing in all honesty. It's like an electroplate or something like that. And along that line, the other markings that you'll want to know are the faux markings or the plate markings, like EPNS. This site has it all. This is another one that I use, silvercollection.it. There's a bunch of them, and some of this information's on 925-1000.com as well. But I just pulled up to show you that there's many different sites. So if you can't find it on one, this site is fairly good on finding it on this one. It's a little easier, I should say, because they've separated the categories for like the markings you'd see, like the EPNS. And EPNS is electroplated nickel silver. It's not silver, so that's just the key. And that's not the only marking that you will see. Like EPBM. Here's another example, electroplated Britannia metal. Now, this is one of those markings that's, from what I understand, it's not really a silver either. This is another one of those cheaper Britannias, and then it was plated with something, electroplated. You could plate things, back in the 1800s, believe it or not, when they could produce enough from like crude batteries and things like that to actually plate something. Anybody can do this. You can do electrolysis on coins in your house. If anybody's interested, I'd be happy to show you. I do it quite often on old metal that I get. So maybe I'll go into that. Maybe it'll be something on my Patreon group. But electrolysis is a home thing that anybody can do very easily without any issue. We do it quite often on some items, and it really cleans up metal. It'll clean up some old silver. If we do Roman coins, I got the kids Roman coins one year for Christmas, and it was just a really neat thing because some of them come out like they were just minted when they're just encrusted after you've electrolysis them. Doesn't hurt the coin unless you're not careful and the juice is running too high. But anyway, there's other markings, EPGS, that's electroplated German silver. And German silver, again, is just like nickel silver. It's not really silver. EPK, another one where it's just some random metal mixed in there. There's generic marks, non-generic. Here's EPMM. And this one's unknown, possibly metal mounts. It could be anything. It could just be some random company putting something in there. It could be junk. EPNS, though, is the most common one that I see. I've even seen it on Christmas ornaments, of course. Hallmark has some. There's some sterling ones as well that are actual silver. And I've seen it on some nice early brooches and things along that line, too. So there's a bunch of markings. Like in some of the gold ones, too, there's rolled gold plate, RGP. That's another one of those odd ones. That's basically like a thin layer of gold just rolled across the surface of it. It will wear down at some point, then you'll be showing through usually bright brass or whatever the other metal is. I think brass is what they use because it's easily bonded to gold. But that's the gist on this. These are the keys. There's not much else that you're going to need if you don't mind digging through these sites that I just showed you. Between these two sites, most of my answers are solved on all silver marked items. Just a given. And you know, for whatever I do, I've talked about this on other videos. Whatever I do, I try to find any type of niche site or secondary market for them, and that's just, you know, you can cross list them if there is a secondary site, or you can get that needed information. And we have some Reddits that we follow and pop in on from here and there from time to time that are vast knowledge of information on things that I had no clue on. I learn stuff every day, and even on this site every day, if I look something up, something that I just found, I'll find some new information. I don't necessarily memorize everything, but if you've sold a few of the same pieces, or like you see markings like 830 on something, you're not going to miss it the second or third time around. So, you know, there's a learning curve, but it's not a huge learning curve because, again, these items, you know, there's only so many of them made if they're vintage. It's not like they're making a new one every single day of the week. Let's just look at one more spot on here. Let's go to world markings on this. Just world markings in general here, just to show you, give you an idea. Now, it breaks it down by area, region, ethnic grouping, and things along that line to some extent. But the markings are various and vast on here, so just keep that in mind. Like here's an 835 on this one. That may not necessarily be 835 parts gold or silver. It could be some city mark. I'm not going to look at every one of these, but we're just going to give you the idea here on what's going on. The ones that I look for the most, and I talk about Chinese items too. There's the big boom in Chinese items. Most definitely, without a doubt, anything with markings from China are horrendously high. Postcards I talk about all the time. Booklets, paper, paper money even, early coins, silver in general. And it's very, very, very rare to run into a silver piece, but I have, honestly, a couple of times. I've been very lucky enough to do that. I love the idea, the history, how it got here, and the whole work. So this is more of an intrigue to me than money alone of anything like this. In the past, we've kept pieces, but I don't have much collection on some items anymore. We don't keep, you know, most items. Most of these days, it's just to have a bank account, you know, and stocking up and having a safety net and things like that, taking care of my family and kids. So, you know, when you collect a lot of stuff, you kind of are losing money to some extent because you're hoarding some of this. You turn from a collector to a hoarder. Now, if it's backstock and you've just got a ton of inventory, that's no issue. But I don't try to collect too much anymore these days, honestly. But anyway, this just gives you an idea on the materials on here. And again, you can just back up, and there's other markings. There's a site for like Japanese markings, Canadian markings around here we find. So that's another one that I've looked into and I use here. Like this one here, this is the first actual jewelry piece that I found that was Canadian. And literally you can see it right here. We're just across the border, you know, 45-minute drive from Canada. So I run into it. John Booth is another one that I find around here quite often. Honestly, it's a fairly common one in this area anyway. And just like some of the other ones on here, we run into a lot of Canadian ones, believe it or not. Again, just by proximity, or British ones that have been around here since colonial days. But that's about it with jewelry that you really need to get yourself going on it. This is it. This site and the other site I just showed you are the two key ones here that I use. So again, 925-1000.com. That's the key one here. Most everything you could need to find is going to be on there. And not only that, but there's a library of sources here that go into references. It lists the books and things like that. Don't buy them from here. I just go straight to the source. I can pop some in the bottom if people are interested in knowing it. But again, don't buy any books. Just use this site. Don't spend the money. I'm cheap as can be. Every dime you save is a dime you earn. So just keep that in your head every time you're looking to buy something. Don't spend too much on anything. Don't waste extra money. Don't buy things you don't need. Be cheap about it, because this is your money now. It's not you working for somebody else and this is more convenient. This is your money. If you don't mind the extra money to be convenient, fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But my model works when I save every dime I can. It all adds up at the end of the year. A dime here, a dime there, a dime here. You could save 10, 20, 30, $40 a week by nickel and diming the business. So I wouldn't nickel and dime a customer, though. I would only make sure I can penny pinch my business. But there's patterns here too, so that's pretty key too, to know how to list the items. Not everyone's here. You can go to Rogers, 1847 Rogers, and there's a lot of good stuff there too. But these are a lot of the more common ones, scarcer ones. This pattern here is known ones. Just click in on here. Most of it's here, but again, you go to some of the other sites of the actual company too. There's several other sites out here that'll do it. Replacement silverware companies that replace silverware. They'll supply you with missing pieces. Those are usually good sources for resource material, because you can sort them there as well too. Like here, this is pretty much covers the United Company by the era that they made them and which patterns they used on there too. So this way, if you don't know the pattern as well and you're going to get into silver, you want to start buying it or whatever the case may be, this is it here. This is how you do it. There's, on like the Tiffany section, if you're just going to go to the markings for Tiffany, they help date them as well too. So you can guess on the date that the Tiffany pieces were made based on some of this. This will give you the price and or the date range and the basic pattern on some of the Tiffany silverware too. Now this is just a small percentage of them. I've seen tons of different varieties of Tiffany anyway. So hopefully that'll give you some ideas on this and what to look for in general. But this is just patterns again. So again, the mark that they have there is not a real mark. That's just pattern-wise we're talking about here. But that's what I have for you today. This site's here for everybody. It's easily accessible. It's got all the information you could possibly need to track down your silver. No expensive books. No hours of searching and trying to figure it out through looking at an eBay listing. This is my first source. Usually my only source. Once I know what it is or I have the pattern down, I can just go to eBay and do a comp real quick. And, most of the people are in the know use this site here too. So anyway, that's what I have for you. Well, there you go. There's some more information. Hopefully that will help your identification, some more knowledge, some things not to look for. So if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.